friends, hi family, hi colleagues. Welcome to the business of adulting. It's very interesting and exciting to finally meet with you. We hope to walk this journey with you. So welcome to this home. It's actually a home of mindfulness, resilience, and innovation. We're not selling success, but we are free enough to open up about our failures, realities of an entrepreneurial journeys, our mental health and ability to take risk, and remain resolute in the midst of uncertainties. So in the business of adulting, we'll be asking and tackling a lot of questions such as how do I adult as a budding entrepreneur? Is entrepreneurship even for me? What does innovation have to do with this? Does mental health matter? What does mindfulness and resilience put me in the entrepreneurial journey? These are some of the questions we tackle robustly in the business of adulting. It's a monthly podcast available in all your favorite platforms. I'm joined by my friends in the business of adulting, Sizwe Vuta and Tembelan Temeza. Would you guys briefly introduce yourselves? Just tell us a bit about yourselves, what you do, why are you even involved in your everyday activities, your job, what excites you, and why are you even interested in the business of adulting? Thank you.
Do you want to go first, Lemez?
You can go, CVWay.
Sure.
Gentlemen first.
We are all equals in the day of liberated women, aren't we? No, thank you very much for that, Sipo. The name is Siviwe Vuta. And I work in the business development space. In my typical day-to-day, I engage with entrepreneurs from different backgrounds, and my areas of focus are around learning and development in the traditional training sense, as well as mentorship. So I try to, as best as I can, find industry experts, leaders to match with the entrepreneurs in our organization, to sort of share insights with them into how they can grow and scale their businesses. And I find that a lot of the mentors we have in our program are genuine individuals who want to give back to society, to help grow the economy and pass on the torch to the next generation of entrepreneurs. And that's, I think, what inspires me most. And it's a conversation I have quite often with my mentors to say, it's you guys that I look up to. It's you guys that really keep me going. Like observing how much you want to do good. It fuels me to continue wanting to assist in any small way that I can. I really believe in entrepreneurship. The world's biggest economies are built on the backs of small businesses, not governments who shouldn't be net employers, and not big corporates who can only employ so many people. It's small sized businesses that contribute largely to the tech space in the biggest economies in the world, and contribute to the progressive employment numbers. So I am interested in contributing again to the space in any small way that I can, because I believe that I have an opportunity then to have a measurable impact on society. I once read a statistic, I can't remember when it was. I'm suspecting it may have changed now, and I suspect it may have gotten worse, given the spiking numbers of unemployment. But at the time, it said something insane like every employed person in South Africa on average feeds 8 mouths. And so you can imagine the snowballing effect that my small contribution can start to have, if I can see to the sustainability of one business that then employs 3 people. It's an exponential number of mouths that are fed because of a contribution I made. And not to say that I'm creating successful businesses that are employing multitudes of people, but that's certainly what inspires me to continue going on this journey, and why I thought to jump at an opportunity like being a member of the business of adulting, where we can unpack topics that Sipo mentioned, and some and engage with entrepreneurs and find out how we can make an even bigger impact. Because information sharing is certainly a way, of contributing and ensuring that, more people are aware of what's really happening, so that they can capitalize fully on whatever opportunities are available to them. And that is Usiviwe in a nutshell. Over to you, Tembela.
Lovely. So I am Tembela Ntlemeza. I'm very glad to be here, to be part of the podcast. So basically, I am involved in innovation development, mainly in the public sector. That's where I currently work. So my day-to-day would look like assisting a researcher figure out a way to transition their, be it a research idea or a research output or outcome into a solution, right? For which there is a market. So that could look like pushing the solution into the market or creating a demand for the solution, and this could be a product or a service in the market. So in a nutshell, that's what I do. But we don't only support researchers; we also work with entrepreneurs like yourself, Siviwe. But in our case, it's particularly technology entrepreneurs, or at least we call them technology entrepreneurs, because often these are men and women with technological solutions, right? Who've developed technological solutions. And we offer support in various ways through our multiple innovation support programs where I work. So basically, that's what I do. What was it? What did Sarah say? So what excites me about the work, right? So I am very, very much interested in what innovation can do for communities, right? So my passion lies with community development, really. So if I am to contextualize what that has to do with innovation, so it's basically what can innovation or technology or technological solutions do for communities. That's really what excites me, and I've had the privilege of seeing a lot of the work that we do being implemented in communities, and sort of being able to record the impact that has had. So yeah, basically that's what excites me, right? Seeing innovation implemented in communities, and from that the outcome being some level of development in these communities. So yeah, that's basically me. That's what I do in a nutshell. And before Sipho introduces himself, Sibiwe, I'm very curious how you got into the work that you do. Why do you care about entrepreneurs or entrepreneurship, for that matter? But if I may pose the question, and then we can go back to Sarah.
Sure. So mine is a funny story, but I think most people would consider their stories rather unique. I do not have an entrepreneurial or business background by any stretch of the imagination. I actually come from a science background, having focused primarily on geology and geographic information systems. So I worked. I'm not gonna go into deep detail. I'm just gonna I think speak to some of the more let's call it prominent some of my more prominent career highlights. I then worked for one of the leading geographic information systems firms, certainly in South Africa, but they have a global footprint with a very large share of the market. So I worked with the company for a short while, and I didn't feel completely comfortable. There's some dynamics again which I'm not really gonna go into, but long story short is that I felt I needed to go. But when I worked for that firm, so among other things, that firm develops software for geographic information systems, and I worked in the training department where we would train the company's end users or the software end users on how to use the new technology. And then I really got like I noticed that I enjoyed training. I enjoyed having a captured audience. I have quirky views about a whole lot of things, and I quite enjoyed sharing my life philosophies with people who had to sit there and take it. And I really enjoyed that space. And I suppose just the let's call it privilege of sharing what little information you have, and then seeing the spark in someone's eyes when they eventually get this concept you're trying to relate to them. And I think that's what a lot of pure teachers experience, and that's why they do it as well. Having the privilege to be better informed about someone, at least when with something specific, and then sharing that with them, and then in a way winning them over and seeing them start to really get what you are relaying, and seeing the applications of what you are relaying to their day-to-day, lives, be it work or personal. So I was in the situation where I wanted to leave this firm for personal reasons, and I realized that I actually quite enjoy training. And then something catalyzed my decision even more. When one of the people who'd come in for training at the firm, this individual had paid exorbitant amounts of money to receive training on a software that he wasn't going to use for his academic pursuits. So this individual had been with an institution of higher learning for several years, and it was this one module that he kept failing, geographic information systems, and he needed to pass this module in order to graduate. So he enrolled for training, at this firm I was under the employ of at the time, but we used a different software. So anyway, this gentleman comes up to me during one of the breaks and says to me, "Listen, man," he explains his plight. "I've been, repeating the single module for so long, and I need someone to help me." And I was like, "Okay, show me a bit about what you're having challenges with." And from within a few minutes, I established that this training isn't going to help because you're using a different software. So let's meet up over the weekend. Long story short, I met with the guy. I managed to assist him. He passed. And then he referred some more people whom I assisted, and then I thought, hey, this could be, transformed into a business. And so I'm in this very interesting space where I want to leave an organization. I want to, take a different career path in terms of how I develop. I still quite enjoy GIS. I'm not ready to let go of it completely, but I really want to see what opportunities lie ahead in the world of training. So I started looking for jobs, using training as the search text. And then I found an opportunity with a business development organization. And at the time, I will say that my searches were aligned, to if I was looking for a sweet spot between training and business. And I was very fortunate to find something almost exactly as what I was looking for. I'd gotten the entrepreneurial bug bite, so to speak, and I wanted to pursue training further. And so the ideal scenario was me growing as a training professional, but within the business landscape. And that's how I landed up at where I currently am. I'm doing the work that I am doing. Long answer there, but I could go on for days if I were to tell you like the absolute, detail of everything I experienced in my journey. But yeah, that's me.
Ah, sounds very interesting. Thanks, Liwe.
Wow.
Yeah, Mr. Tukane, I think you were about to introduce yourself to our listeners as well.
Friends, as you can hear, you're actually in good hands. Diverse people in the room, interesting history, interesting growth in the space, interest, very importantly, building businesses in the country, developing technologies for the country, solving our real world challenges, as you have heard for yourselves. And also, you could get a little bit from Severe when he was just telling us about how he got to do what he's doing now, how he even ended up starting the business of training in the GIS space, assisting GIS students. It might spark a thought in you to understand that it's always about the problem. And it's not an everyday case where you find the problem presented to you and you have a solution for that. We've seen a lot of entrepreneurs pushing solutions that are not actually needed in the marketplace or no one cares about. But it's also very important that you spend time understanding the nature of the challenges, understanding how your people or the people that you want to help are being affected by these challenges, and who's solving those problems. With their solutions, are they really solving those problems in its entirety, or you have a room to actually come up with different strategies to help those people to solve those problems? So it's questions that we'll be thinking about as we go along. And before I even introduce myself, just a thought to my friends. It's a thought, it's something that we might want to share. Both of you have an interesting, you've good interest in the business, good interest in entrepreneurship. Just a question, is entrepreneurship for everyone? And to Temeza, you talked about market push and market pull. How is that going? Yeah. So some of the people, they think developing technologies is going to solve the real world problems. Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does. But how do you actually push a solution to people? For people that didn't even realize that they have a problem, how do you actually teach them to understand that this problem they do have and it's actually affecting them to an extent that they are willing to put their money in the solutions that we're offering? Okay, enough about that. About me, as you have heard, they call me Sira, so you can call me Tasira, friends. My name is Sipho Dikweni. I'm also in the technology development space. Very excited about what we're doing, because what we are doing, we actually unearth innovators who are solving real world challenges. That's very important. Obviously, it's in the technology development space, assisting the country to have its own technologies. So we stop importing technologies and we can start exporting technologies. That says a lot about the development of the country, about the economic growth, and also solving our own problems. Because some of the technologies that we see, especially technologies that are developed in other countries, might not really address our own challenges. So it's important that in the country we develop our own. So I'm actually in the ICT space. I'm excited about the ICT, the role that it plays in the economic development. And also it cutting across all industries. So I would say I'm agnostic in terms of the technologies. What interests me a lot is building businesses out of those technologies. Yeah, these guys, they develop technologies, but there's a real challenge in actually turning those technologies into products and services that can be consumed in the marketplace. So I assist entrepreneurs and innovators to package their technology solutions into something that can be consumed in the marketplace. Building businesses, putting systems in place, processes, dashboards, assisting them to find market realities, learn about the market, what is happening in the market. The market is changing every day, customer behaviors, how do you actually discover your customers, what are the kind of things that you need to look at when you develop a technology. And most importantly, how do you present yourself when you go to your customers? Because it's different when you're talking to an entrepreneur. In fact, when you're talking to another innovator, and when you go to someone who just wants to consume or who have their problems, sometimes they don't even know that they have challenges or they have problems. And then how do you actually tell them that actually you need this solution can actually work for you? So we also assist those entrepreneurs to build such a language which can be heard by anyone, not spending a lot of time technological terms, but talking about the benefits. How do you sell? So those are the kind of things that I'm actually busy with on a day-to-day, on my day-to-day activities. And it's very exciting because at the end of the day, the ripple effect, it's economic development. We solve the problems. And also we get to see the country changes, because without entrepreneurship, without technologies, then we are doomed for failure. We'll forever be dependent on other countries. So it's important that we on the ground push those technologies, assist those entrepreneurs. So that is me. That is Sipoti Kweni. That is Tasira for you. Thank you so much. So I think.
Sorry, Mr. G.
Yes.
Okay. I can go. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm very curious. As you were speaking, I was just wondering, how do you measure success, right? I'm very simplistically, how would you measure success in the work that you do? But before we get there, I think we should actually tackle the question, is entrepreneurship for everyone? Is it for everyone? I have a personal story, but let me throw the question out there, right? Is it for everyone? How are you guys thinking about it? I mean, so many national governments are, driving policy on entrepreneurship. It's really, I think there was a time when it was a big buzzword, even in our country. And I think it still is to a certain extent. But should everyone be transitioning into, becoming an entrepreneur of some sort? Are there people who just aren't, meant for that path? What do you guys think?
Very interesting question. According to me, entrepreneurship is not for everyone. There's people who do so well with their career. There's career people just focus on their careers and they do so well in what they do. But also there's people who are actually meant to be entrepreneurs by nature. Those guys, everything to them is entrepreneurship. They see problems. They find business in every opportunity. In fact, they find opportunity in every problem that they face. So, not everyone. We shouldn't romanticize the issue of entrepreneurship. It's a serious term. It's a serious. It has to be taken seriously. Yeah, it would be nice to have everyone being an entrepreneur, but that's not realistic. It's very challenging to be in that space, and also it's a very lonely space. So it requires a certain mindset. So I think it's some of the questions that we have to actually unpack as we go along. What kind of mindset do you have as an entrepreneur? Do you have to be flexible, which is very important? Do you have an eye for solving problems, problem-solving skills? Are you able to communicate? So it's very important. It requires a lot, the energy that you have to put in communication, selling skills and all that. If you can't communicate, I don't see yourself being an entrepreneur. You can build the technology, two different things. There's innovators, but it doesn't mean those innovators are able to take those solutions into the market. That's why you find sometimes you would build a technology and then someone else comes over and take it and run it into the market. Because that person is actually very good at what they do, developing technology, and that's it. There's people who are very good with building businesses and going to the market and selling. So it's a lot of skills that you need to put in place. I think maybe as we go along, we'll want to touch on that. What kind of skills would you want to have as an entrepreneur? What kind of questions would you want to answer yourself? Because it's also very important to align yourself into the journey that you want to take. It's a very challenging and a lonely journey. It's not very easy as it might be, as it looks. So it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of sacrifice. So according to me, it's not for everyone.
If I could come in, I'd like to look at this from a different lens. Can entrepreneurship be taught, right? Because I think we can look at this in the same way we speak about leaders and leadership. I've often heard the question, are leaders born or are leaders made? So if I'm understanding what you're saying properly, Sipo, is that entrepreneurs are born. If you aren't an entrepreneur from birth, then you might as well just give up. And I take a different standpoint, from that perspective. You spoke about communication. I think people can be taught communication skills. You spoke about sales. I think people can be taught how to become better salespeople. So there certainly are like people who are natural born, communicators, salespeople, and so on and so forth. But those aren't impossible skills to attain. There are a number of businesses that were established by innovators, people who were initially not entrepreneurs. And I think we see a lot of that, especially in the tech space. But some of the biggest companies today, without naming any companies, but some of the biggest companies out of Silicon Valley were established by non-entrepreneurs, just computer geeks, to speak disparagingly about them. And now they've gone on to be the biggest companies in the world. And so from that standpoint, I think with the right resources, just about everyone can taught to be an entrepreneur. But there are some soft skills that I think can't be taught to anyone, like the desire to win, for instance, not giving up, being resilient. I think those are certainly things you need from birth, unfortunately. And I could be wrong in my position here, but a lot of the technical skills, I think, are things that can be imparted on someone. But even with the softer skills that are not so technical, I think Tembela correctly pointed out that entrepreneurship was a buzzword so long ago and probably still is. But if you manage to make entrepreneurship attractive, then someone who may have not considered entrepreneurship at all, but all of a sudden, because it's a buzzword, then I like to be current, I like to be in the know, I like to move with the times. So I'm also going to want to participate in that, and I could very well be successful, and had it not been popularized, then I would have never thought about being an entrepreneur. Let's consider, and I often joke to my friends, without going into the context of the conversation, and say things like, for all I know, I am the best skier in the world. And I was born to be a skier, but I just happened to be born in South Africa where there isn't any snow. So I didn't get an opportunity to explore that skill. Until something is made accessible to me, then it will forever remain foreign and unknown. Like take rugby, for instance. Until rugby, was introduced to some black schools, and some black children had exposure to the sport. They didn't know that they had the talent, and all of a sudden now some of them are representing us at national team level. So point I'm making is this: I think there is a case to be made for entrepreneurship being transferable, given that the requisite resources, let's say, are made available, to whom we are trying to transfer entrepreneurship to. So
just a bit on that, as you are saying that it can be taught. So we also need to make a difference between running a business and we need to find a position. Is running a business, is being innovator, are innovators entrepreneurs? That's a question that we have to answer for us to actually get to the answer saying, okay, entrepreneurship is for everyone. Because also even to the companies that you're pointing to, those guys who develop big tech and everything, they had to build systems in place. They have to, in fact, actually to get people to assist them to take those. They're not involved in the sales, most of them. They're not really involved in the sales. They remain where they are. And what we've seen also over the time, you would find most of these entrepreneurs, I would actually attest to that, you would find good entrepreneurs, in fact, innovators coming from the universities, they spin off companies, and then someone else takes over as a CEO, and they remain maybe as a chief technology officer. Not to say their role is not important, but then they have to remain where they are. So there's a thin line about running a business and entrepreneurship. There's a very thin line about innovation and entrepreneurship. Innovators and entrepreneurs, can those use interchangeable? I think no. So if we take that position, it means entrepreneurship is not for everyone.
Okay, but and I'm sorry, Tembela, not to make this a debate. I just want to respond to something very specific.
Please make it a debate. I'm enjoying.
You mentioned, Sipho, when we were doing our round of introductions, that an entrepreneur is someone who is able to identify opportunity and solve a problem. So by your definition of an entrepreneur, then every innovator is an entrepreneur because they are coming up with a solution to solve a problem. So there certainly is a discussion to be had about business development and entrepreneurship, and I don't think I don't think that's the same thing. But if an entrepreneur in its most fundamental state is someone who solves a problem for the purposes of gaining a profit, I'd say innovators are absolutely entrepreneurs. Maybe not business developers, but certainly entrepreneurs.
Maybe we might say not business people. We might say not business people. There's a very thin line. They're still not entrepreneurs, but we can rest this for now. Maybe
okay, no, let's not.
You can come in.
I don't think it's time to rest it. Guys, how are we distinguishing though between an innovator and an entrepreneur? Because the way I'm thinking of it is the innovator develops and implements a solution, right? And implements. That's very key, right? To actually implement the solution, right? But then the entrepreneur figures out a way to extract commercial value from the implementation of this solution. Is this how we're distinguishing between the two?
I would want to go with what I think you raise a very important point. So innovators, they create new products or services or come up with new ways of doing things or doing businesses, whilst very important entrepreneurs turn those ideas, turn those products and services into business or viable business concepts. Maybe we can take that position. So that means now exactly you're extracting value out of that, and that's economical value. That's where now you're actually packaging that. Whatever the innovator has created, packaging it in a way that can be consumed by whoever it was intended for. Then now that means you are actually building a business out of the product that the innovator has developed. Building the business now, you actually go into the market, understand the people, talk with your target audience, get them to understand the key value, because there's also a very thin line between benefits and features. So if you take a closer look to innovators will always tell you about the features, how best their features are, and they do not spend a lot of time talking about how this is going to benefit the customer, the end user. How am I going to benefit from this solution you're giving me or from this technology you developed? So entrepreneur, I think, is someone who's able to say, now, okay, these features are doing 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then this is what you get when you're using or consuming this solution or this innovation or this product. Once you consume this product, it's going to solve 1, 2, 3, and 4. So in fact, you can't really separate them. You need both of them. But I'm not sure if we still answer that question.
Are they the same person or are they different people? Like,
you know what I think?
Sometimes it can be the same person. There are people who are actually innovating and also entrepreneurial. They are innovators all together, just innovators. They are entrepreneurs who are just entrepreneurs. They don't actually develop products. They are very good with actually turning those products who have already been developed, taking those, turn those into businesses and actually get in the market with them, run with them. Well, that's what I think.
Okay, like, shouldn't we find another word for those people, because they haven't developed anything? They are using someone else's innovation to build a business. I think it's unfair to entrepreneurs to call those people entrepreneurs.
Seville is complicated. I like it.
But it's very interesting, because now we must take a position that entrepreneurs and innovators have some common characteristics. I think if we take that base, we actually get in somewhere. They are characteristics because both of them, innovators, they come with ideas
to solve a problem.
To solve a problem. Entrepreneurs, they come with ideas to take that product into the market,
which also aims to solve a problem.
Exactly, which also helps to solve a problem. So it's a very interesting one. It's a very maybe we might want to have some at some point. Might want to identify an innovator, an entrepreneur, to have them in the room and get to hear what they would say.
Huh. Do you think there's an innovator who doesn't consider themselves an entrepreneur, or an entrepreneur who doesn't consider themselves an innovator? I'm just wondering, because you say if you can get them to that means they've distinguished themselves, right? I am but not an innovator, or I am an innovator but not an entrepreneur.
I think there are entrepreneurs who will openly admit to not being innovators, and I think we typically call them hustlers. I've met with people who will tell you that I sell anything. When like during COVID, they were selling masks, sanitizers, and now it's something else that they've identified an opportunity to make a. I feel like it might be a bit disparaging to say make a quick buck. A lot of those people are honest, hardworking people, and they have a unique ability to suss out opportunity and capitalize on it. They make their hay while the sun is out, and I think those people have earned every right to be called entrepreneurs. They will tell you themselves that, listen, I'm not an innovator. I'm not looking to develop the next new technology. I am out here hustling, trying to capitalize on whatever opportunities present themselves. And I think that's an entrepreneur.
Siviwe, can I ask a question? This is very interesting, ne? So you know how you say somebody will say, I haven't developed anything new, therefore I'm not an innovator, right? Here's the thing, right? Is innovation only when something new has been developed, or could it be innovation in how the thing that has always existed, how it's now being, say, made available, or how it's being marketed? I'll use a very simple example. So when I drive to work, I get stuck somewhere in the close to the highway, right, just before I off ramp. So I get stuck in traffic because of load shedding, right? So there's a guy there who sells coffee in traffic. I don't know how he's figured out a way to keep it warm. He's got all his essentials. He's got a thing that he wears, and he keeps a hot water inside this thing. I can't.
Is this on R55?
Yes, you've seen the guy, right? Yes.
I've seen posts about the guy, and I'm familiar with the area.
Man, I saw that and I was like, this is exciting, right? So I don't drink coffee, so I couldn't buy. But people buy, right? And he's got his cups and his sugars and things. And I'm like, I've never seen this before. This is innovation, because how he's making coffee, a product that we've been consuming since forever, how he's making it available is innovative, isn't it? Wow. How he's marketing it is innovative. So is he not an innovator? Because he didn't create coffee.
He absolutely is. And I think you said it yourself. You'd never seen it being done
this way, exactly.
Or this was a new way. You saw a new way of doing it. So it certainly is new. And I think it's the latter between the two comparisons you gave us, creating something new or changing how something being done. I think both qualify as innovative in my opinion. I mean, a lot of people will tell you that all the best songs have been made. Like, you can't write a new chord because someone else has written it sometime in history. And yet we have new genres like amapiano come up, making those same chords that have been played in the past and have been written in the past, but coming up with a new innovative way of crafting those chords and how they all come together. I know very little about music, but I think what I'm trying to say is having, the ability to transform something that exists and finding a new innovative way of doing it or looking at it, that certainly does qualify as innovation. Otherwise, any new car then will not qualify as having been innovative, because cars have been around for I don't know how many years now.
Exactly.
So we need to differentiate between an invention and an innovation. So I think that's the most important thing. So invention, you come in with something that is entirely new. It could be a process of doing something that we already know, but the process of actually that method of doing something in a different way. So it could be an invention. Whilst innovation, you actually taking something that's already there, you actually taking it in a different direction or repurposing it. So there's literally nothing that you have actually come up with in terms of the concept itself. Concept is there, like you're saying, but there's nothing new under the sun. So it means we have coffee, we've been consuming coffee. We know where to go when we want coffee. But now this guy is innovative in the way of actually bringing this coffee into people's hands and how it's making it. Otherwise, there's nothing that's changed. It's still the coffee. You're still gonna get high. See, like Sheldon would say, but I don't take drugs. His friends were asking him if he does take coffee, and he say, "No, my mom told me never to take drugs." So it's one of those. But I think it's very important also to actually think about that innovation and invention. And also, there's an interesting trend. We're talking about the scope of technology development, talking about entrepreneurship, and there's this digital. We are in the digital world. So what we've seen, we are seeing a lot of business model innovation more than technological innovation. See, and most of these guys, they would come to you saying, "I've come up with this new app." I would always tell them, "I know the app is not new. You just repurposing the app has been there." You see, so you just repurposing the app into a different direction. Of which is not the wrong thing. It's actually very important that we're able to use what we have to solve our problems, to actually deal and respond to the challenges that we do have. So if I find that it's important for me to develop an app to list businesses in the Eastern Cape, because if there's no one who's listing the business in the Eastern Cape, that doesn't mean I'm developing a new app. The app is already there. The concept of the app is known. What I'm doing now is repurposing the app. Maybe it hasn't been used in that particular domain. Now I'm introducing that into that domain. That's also being innovative, you see. So also, I think now we're getting closer to understanding entrepreneurship, because most of those guys, they focus in business more than anything. See.
And there's another level to this, or another, shall we call it, profile that we can bring into the conversation, and that is an intrapreneur. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that term.
Can you unpack that?
Intrapreneur. Hey, Tambel.
I have heard of the term. Yeah, so I'm saying.
What's your understanding of the term?
I don't remember. I'm not gonna lie, but I have heard of versus entrepreneur.
Yeah, so I'm not sure about my understanding. Hence, I was hoping someone else would come to the fore. But as my grasp of it is, at least, is that it's someone who applies the principles of entrepreneurship within an organization. So if I'm employed in the business of adulting, and then I use, innovative thinking for the growth of the organization and all that. So I behave as an entrepreneur within the broader organization, or for the broader organization.
I think Usira is entrepreneur.
I could fall in both. I think I'm an entrepreneur by nature. I remember when I was growing up, I've always had interest in the business. It's so unfortunate that I never got to study business. Just like Svio has indicated that he was trained in the sciences, I was also trained in the sciences, exactly the GIS and remote sensing and geology. But there has always been this thing that has been bugging me, to an extent that I started doing business, starting businesses, putting people together. High school, always think about new ways of making money. It was all about money that time. So yeah, it has been. Now I think I've evolved. So a lot of things have changed. I've seen things differently. But I've always wondered, okay, how can we make money quickly? How can we do this? To an extent that I've fallen short into a lot of scams in the high school, in high school, also in the varsity. I made money with some of the scams. Some I never made any, I never made anything. I've lost everything, but I've never stopped. I've always wanted to try new things, and to an extent that where I was working before I joined the technology development space, I got bored doing research, excited about this new paper, excited about this, but then come on, man, when are we going to get men to make money? And then I had to transition towards the space, and it was exciting at that stage because South Africa was still looking for young engineers and scientists to train them to commercialize new technologies. That's intellectual property. So I got a strong training in intellectual property management, strong training in the commercialization of IP, and also strong training in terms of actually raising funds, also identifying clever and stupid money, and all those things. So it's things that I've been actually being absorbed into. But also that it doesn't make someone an entrepreneur until you start something and there's something that you're actually doing on the ground. Because it's also very important to understand that when you get into business, when you start when the idea sparks, you see a quick win. And when you're actually doing it, it's not it. It's far difficult as you would think, which takes us to the question of what are the key things, just few things or even 5 things that one might want to look at before they even think about starting a business. See. So maybe Siwe, you can give us what you think is important, and also Ntlemezo, you can give us what you think is important. So, by the way, yeah, I do run some of I do have few ventures, so it put me in the entrepreneur space, and not so much about innovation or being innovation, more about actually making money out of what is already there in the marketplace, and also some creativity, because I think you need to have a lot of creativity with you when you go towards that journey of entrepreneurship. You would want to take us?
Sure. But before I tackle the question at hand, we just on the topic of differentiating between an innovator, an inventor, an entrepreneur, and within entrepreneurship, in fact, what invoked this line of thought is what you said, Sipo, about back in the day when you were only concerned about making money. There are those entrepreneurs, they are only concerned about putting bread on top of the table, and would refer to those as survivalist entrepreneurs. Some people go into business because they can't find employment, with the high unemployment numbers in the country and so on and so forth. And so, my motivation behind pursuing business or entrepreneurship might be very different from the next person. The next person might have seen an opportunity to solve and make money. So even within entrepreneurship, the different levels. There are people who do have a potential of large growth and scaling, but prefer to keep a small family-sized operation, and they aren't interested in becoming a multi-million rand business one day. What sort of entrepreneur is that versus a really ambitious person who wants to take over the universe, and what makes them ticking? And maybe those are certainly things we can unpack in the next episodes to follow.
Yes.
But if I remember correctly, the question was, what is my particular interest in business?
Yes, and what would be the key things that you would want to look at before you start a business?
Yeah, I think the value proposition is the absolute crux of the business. I think without a value proposition, then do we even have a business? So what value are you really bringing to the marketplace? And I see Utamela's just jumped off. And second to that, it's a customer segment. So do you have a segment of the market that could potentially purchase your value proposition? And the independent variable between those two considerations, I think, is key. There are some people with great ideas, and you mentioned it earlier, Sipo. People with great ideas, great innovations, but no one is interested in that. There are people with great solutions, but no one is paid to have those solutions fixed. And to an extent that some people are happy to live with the problem. So I think down a solid value proposition, and this comes like after having done a lot of market research, after having taken a lot of things into consideration. So you're not looking at it in isolation, but I think a solid value proposition, and I also think having a minimum viable product, or at least a a pilot that you can test your innovation or your service or product with the market. So having something that can validate the concept validation. So MVP, concept validation. So a lot of people will tell you that they need funding for their business. And then you start to speak to those people and you actually find that these people don't need funding, because no funder would be interested in funding this business because it doesn't have a value proposition that could translate into an ROI for me as an investor. So I think before and I think if you get all your ducks in a row, you have all your T's crossed, I's dotted with the value proposition, then the right funding is gonna come to you. So I'm a capitalist, important to disclose, and I believe in the dictates of the market. If you have something that is of value to the market, the market will pay to consume that, whatever it may be. And so if you are able to derive an MVP, prove your concept, I think then the right people are going to come in as investors, or your customers are going to fund, the business or, the product or service by purchasing it and enabling you to grow and scale. So I think it's focusing on the fundamentals before wanting hundreds of millions of in funding to grow a business. And just one last point, in the space I'm in, I encounter a lot of entrepreneurs who say they need funding. And again, when you start looking at their papers, you establish that these people need to fund operations, they need like capital funding. So you give this person 100,000, they're gonna pay salaries, they're gonna refurbish their offices. It's nothing that speaks to, listen, I have a higher demand for my product, and therefore I need to acquire an asset that enable me to produce at scale. And so within so many months, I would have paid off this machine or this loan. Whatever, a lot of it is I need to refurbish, I need to buy new computers, but nothing that translates to the growth and scaling of a business. And if you look at a business like that, that guy doesn't need funding. He needs to pivot his value proposition and find something that has a potential for growth and scaling. Long-winded answer there, Sipo, but I think you got somewhat of a response.
No, perfect. I think it's an interesting answer. It would be interesting to hear from Tlemeza what she thinks are the key important things to consider before you start a business.
You start a business, right? Yeah, sure. So I think everything that Siviwe has said, absolutely agree with, especially the stuff around the value proposition, right? But I could add one very key thing, and I think that is systems thinking. And I think you guys will definitely agree with me here. I think that from just the entrepreneurs that we've supported in the work that I do, I have at least been able to observe, the systems thinker versus the guy with the tunnel vision. So I think as an entrepreneur or as a budding entrepreneur, you definitely need to be thinking beyond just the product or solution that you are developing or you have developed, but also understand some of the other very key elements of taking this product to the market. And that could, depending on what type of product it is, that could look like understanding, the regulatory environment. For example, if you're looking at implementing a mining technology, right? Understanding what kind of licenses you may need. And yeah, I'm really speaking off the top of my head. I'm just imagining some of the technologies that we support, right? So you know what you need to understand. You may need some form of a license from the national department that presides over mining activity in the country. Perhaps you wanting to implement a solution in the rural areas. You need to be thinking about what those environments look like, and in particular, very I don't want to use the term primitive because I have a problem with it, but I want to say that you may be going into a space where you have a different system of governance. Say the land is owned by or governed by the chief or the chief. What is it, chiefs or chieftaincy?
Yes.
And you're wanting to implement a solution or a product there, and so you may have to learn how to speak with a chief, how to approach. These things really matter. Like these things may be.
They are very, very, very important.
They're very key, and I think.
And I like what you're saying. How to speak with the chiefs. So I'm imagining someone trying to introduce a technology in the taxi industry. The language is very different, and also. Yeah, how you get there is very different compared to where you were going to make a deal wherever in Sentin, wherever. Now you're going to the rank, going to meet with the associations and all that. Also, the kind of language, it's very important. How you present yourself is also very important. So I would say in any other business, you need to, very important point, you need to understand how business is done in that particular domain that you are actually involved in. That's what we are still there, guys. What does resilience has to do with anything? Or just before we close, I'm looking at the time. The resilience and mindfulness, or maybe can you just touch a bit here, both of you, stoicism and entrepreneurship? Is there any importance? Because we've seen a lot of guys. And most of the guys who build businesses also in the past, it's guys that were stoics. So it's very interesting to see how other people are also following that trend. You've seen most of entrepreneurs who are actually building businesses, strong businesses. They will tell you about the importance of understanding stoicism, resilience, mindfulness, and innovation. So what is the interface between all those before we just wrap up? Sviwe and Clemeza can take over after Sviwe.
I would like to categorically state that I wasn't done making my point when you interjected.
So you can actually make your point and also build up into it. Yeah. Sorry about that.
It's okay. But what do I was almost done. But essentially, I was just saying that being able to see the entire system, or at least most parts of the system, and not just your solution or your technology, and but being able to have that, what is it, bird's eye
view, yes,
bird's eye view, exactly, and see the different stakeholders, the different elements, the different key part of the network within which you're wanting to introduce a technology. Be able to see all those actors and have a sense of understanding of how to engage all of them. But yeah, let me hand over to Siviwe around the resilience stuff, then I'll come back.
I mean, that's well, firstly, let me comment. I'm sure Sipo wants to fit in as much as he can in this first episode. Hence, he cut you very rudely, I must add. Mindfulness, resilience, stoicism, I think those are great life lenses in general, not only as they relate to business. So like if you are, and I'm gonna like scratch the surface here because I'm not really comfortable in this domain, but if you are a resilient individual, it takes quite a lot to deter you from your mission. Failure is almost guaranteed in business.
Yeah.
And it's part of the journey. And some of the most important lessons actually come from failure. And I know a lot of people in our space encourage failure. I mean, there's even a phrase I've picked up somewhere where they go fail fast or fail now or fail fast or something along those lines. So in the language, it's encouraged. But what's important is that it doesn't become the end of you. And to quote Nelson Mandela, and I'm gonna butcher his quote very badly, but he's famous. He once said something. He famously said something about success. Not being about you not falling down, but how many times you get up. In each instance that you fall down. And maybe one of you guys can quote that much better than I just did. That speaks to resilience. How many times can you get up after you've been knocked out? The sheer will to go on, despite everything being stacked up against you. And you will learn about me as we engage more and more that I love quotes, and sometimes I forget who said the quote. Sometimes I butcher the quotes very badly, but there is another quote. It's a favorite of mine, although it's very cynical. I think it was Stalin who said, "Never let a good disaster go to waste," or something along those lines.
Yes, yes.
And and that's certainly entrepreneurial thinking. He may have, I mean, you can apply that to entrepreneurial thinking. So in the midst of a difficult time, like with a declining economy um, as an entrepreneur, how can you find opportunity with everything falling apart? How can you find solutions to stop things from falling apart? And maybe Sipo, I'm not going to speak to mindfulness and stoicism. I'm going to hand over to Tembela to respond to that. Just in closing with resilience, is that we we as a country are in a very difficult place. Our economy is on a continuous decline and has been for the past few years running. Inflation, this, interest rates, that. But for someone, and maybe I'm putting to us as a challenge, myself included, for people who consider themselves entrepreneurs with entrepreneurial thinking, solutions driven and all of it. Like South Africa is probably one of the greatest places to be right now to come up with new innovations to pull us out of the deep dark trenches in which we currently find ourselves. So what can we do to things? Because the most successful businesses are businesses that serve a purpose, and a lot of them serve a human desire. I mean, you look at social media businesses and you wonder, like, what human need are they servicing? And it's actually a very important one that goes millions of years into our evolution, if you believe in that sort of thing. But the desire to feel as though we're part of the tribe, for acknowledgement. And that's why, I mean, scientists have done studies around some of the chemicals that your brain releases, when your post receives a large amount of engagement. And so the reasons these companies are as big is because they're serving an inherent human desire and feel in the need to feel wanted as part of a tribe, to want to be acknowledged, loved, and so on and so forth. And so, in closing, maybe a challenge again I'm throwing to us as a forum to say, with everything that's happening in this country, like, how can we not let this good disaster go to waste? But of course, for the benefit, for the better benefit of the people, and not only for our financial gains or political ends. But yeah, over to you, Tembela, just in terms of mindfulness and stoicism, maybe
So,
of resilience. I don't
Sigiwe,
know.
the pressure in terms of mindfulness and stoicism.
No, because I mean that's part of the question I couldn't get to from.
But I think maybe I'll take a different angle, perhaps. But I mean, I just want to quickly piggyback on everything you've said now, Steven, and totally agree. And I want to take a slightly different view on, how Sira, you were saying just now that, failure is a big part of, the journey of entrepreneurship, and it's in fact a very necessary one, right? But I want to take a slightly different view in the sense that I want to mention that it's also important not to be failing because we are not teachable, right? And I say this, I borrow from one of the big Stoics. But I really do, though. I borrow from Epictetus, where he says, in one of the discourses, he says, throw out your conceited opinions, for it is impossible for a person to begin to learn what he thinks he already knows, right? So why I say this is because, in the work that we do, we've worked with innovators / entrepreneurs who were not willing to take a different view when it was necessary, right? Or rather, when our opinion was that it is necessary, right? So I think that it's also so important to be teachable. In life, generally, it's so important to have a teachable spirit, to have that humility of being willing to be taught, to learn, right? But more so perhaps in the journey of innovation, entrepreneurship, right? So obviously that could look however it looks for different scenarios, but it's just something that I'm thinking I want to throw out there, that sometimes we want to romanticize failure, but hey, maybe Thembi is refusing to learn when Siviwe says, hey, Thembi, have you considered perhaps doing it this way? Have you considered adding such a feature? Have you considered, disassembling this device and maybe looking at it this way? And because I am so passionate about my product, I am so passionate about my offering, I am so emotionally, obviously, attached to it. And so I'm not willing to, to take a different direction, or to integrate, somebody else's opinion around it, etc., etc. So basically what I'm saying in closing is that it's so, I think, important to have a teachable spirit, because like Epictetus says, it's impossible for a person to learn what he thinks he already knows. So if I'm teachable, then I am on the right path, because I will learn, and what comes from that is I will be able to improve on my my business, or my innovation, or my product, etc.
Yeah. So just if I may add one more point on this, absolutely agree, Thembi, and I think it's all about failing forward. I mean, if you are at the same point, failing over and over again, toppling at the same hurdle, then maybe you need to really introspect. There's another famous quote that says, insanity, or the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So it's about failing forward, but absolutely you should. And I think the most intelligent people are some of the most conscientious people. They observe what others around them are telling them, and they see what else is happening, and then they make an informed decision. And in fact, that's what all good science preaches, that you make a decision based on empirical evidence that you can gather. But in closing with my quotes, I said it was Stalin who said the thing about letting a good crisis go to waste. It was actually Winston Churchill, but I was in the ballpark because they were both World War II characters. I just wanted to point that out, lest we have a fact checker saying our perpetuates false information.
Yeah. Very important. Very important. Actually, this is very interesting when you're talking about being teachable, because the key characteristics of a resilient person, not even talk about the business leader or anything, it's ability to adapt quickly. Yeah, that's very important. And for you to easily adapt and change the course, you must be able to be willing to learn. and you must be influenced. It's very important. If you are a human being, you allow yourself to be influenced. But for sure, you need to know what kind of influence you allow yourself to be. Also, the mindfulness, you must be aware of where you are and also what you are doing is very important. When we are aware, awareness is very important. We are aware of what you know. We are aware of what you do not know. And also, you are aware of what you might potentially know wrong. So the importance of being open-minded is very important. As we talked about these guys and this opening, our first introductory episode, has been very interesting. We talked about a whole lot of things. This is just to give you a primer of what we'll be actually discussing as we move forward. And also, we're actually very willing to learn from you guys. We need you to come on board, to walk this journey with us, teach us, show us the direction that we can take in terms of building businesses. In terms of growth, personally, that's also very important. Mental health is one of the key issues that we're dealing with. And also, how does one even become resilient, especially these trying times? It's very important that we are actually a resilient person, not in business, in running the business as a human being. And also, you are mindful, you are aware. Also, you understand that life is not all this glorified happiness we talk about. We understand we'll meet a lot of challenges as we grow, and we must embrace them. We must allow ourselves to grow with those challenges because they actually teach us a lesson. If you can look back in some of the challenges that we have faced, a lot of things that we have actually, a lot of challenges actually shifted the way you view the world. So they are not unnecessary. They are actually necessary for our growth. So for today, it has been very interesting, and thank you a lot for being with us. We hope to see you in the next episode. But a parting shot from our friends, from the friends and family of the business of adulting, Viewer and Clemeza, you can give us parting shots and then we can close. Thank you.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed the discussion this afternoon. I think we are off to a good start for the business of podcasting. And I'd like to thank everyone who listens to this. And be on the lookout for more robust and exciting debates about a whole host of things. And we're looking forward to hearing your inputs as well. And if you have anything you'd like us to unpack, then please do recommend, discussion points for us. But I think we had a great one. Awesome. Thank you to the family of the business of adulting.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys. Thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. And like Siviwe has said, please do let us know what you'd like us to tackle, what you'd like us to unpack in future episodes. We are very much open to your input, your comments. Absolutely. So yeah. Thank you so much. Looking forward to more. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. All the best. Thank you so much. Bye.
Cheers,
All right,
guys.
cheers, colleagues. Bye. I will upload the recording on Google Drive, and then I'll send you the link. I say upload it, but not now. And I have to do it later. I just need to rush somewhere very quickly. But that was great, man. Enjoyed that thoroughly. Sharp.